was built in 1902 when there was practically nothing in this entire area but scrubland, prairie land. It took quite an imagination to imagine that this place would be anything one day, and the Grant family had that imagination. In 1917, the house was sold to the Humphreys family. A.E. Humphreys was a millionaire that made his money in mining, oil, and all sorts of different industries. He actually lost and gained his fortune quite a bit, and his wife Alice moved with him into this house in 1917. Albert E. Humphreys had two sons, Ira and Albert Humphreys Jr., and their kids lived here until the 70s. But Albert himself had a misfortune. In 1927, they were going to they had a lodge in the woods, and they were going on a hunting trip with the family, and he was supposedly cleaning his rifle up in the gunroom up on the 3rd floor when it accidentally went off in his face, and basically he blew half his head off. It's very unfortunate. He survived, believe it or not, until he got to the hospital, and he died at the hospital. This would have been in May of 1927. The official ruling was that it was an accident. Some people claim that it was murder, that they were trying to keep him silent. He was supposed to testify before a grand jury as part of the Teapot Dome scandal. And some people said it was suicide for his embarrassment over his role in that same scandal. His family they didn't want to leave. They loved this place, so they stayed with his widow. They lived here until the 70s with their family. When A.E. unexpectedly died around 1967, they started thinking about selling it. But in 1970, it was actually added to the National Register of Historic Places for its preeminence at the time. It was one of the first residences in this area. It belonged to a former governor, and he decided to donate that property to the Historical Society, now History Colorado, and it was bequeathed in his will. It transferred ownership in 1976. So the house came to Historical Society, History Colorado, and the park to the west went to the city of Denver to be used as a public park. This is the Grand Ballroom, where Denver's elite used to dance the night away in this beautiful built-in ballroom along with a stage. If you can picture a string quartet and the lovely ladies in their silk brocades as they strummed away on a harp or a violin. And it was used to host children's parties, puppet shows, and theater, and the things for the kids that would live here throughout the 40s and 50s. This is the bowling alley, one of the only rooms in the house with its original floors. This room was also used by Humphreys as a shooting gallery. If you can imagine his rifle going off indoors, it must have been quite the deafening sound. So the question I always get asked is it haunted? And I have to say no, I don't think so.
Yeah, this place is definitely haunted. We've had reports from guests of a little girl playing in the bowling alley and singing in French. We've also had people report an angry individual in the tunnel area, and he's apparently frightened a few guests. So 3rd floor stays locked all the time, and I was up here one night closing up after a piano recital, and I came up here to the top of the stairs, and I was just making sure all the lights were off, everything was locked. When I turned around and looked through the glass partition, I saw a little girl standing there with curly blonde hair and a frilly Victorian-era dress. She kind of looked like a Star Wars projection as far as color goes. At that point, I started doing my research into the history of the house, and I found out that Alice Lucille Humphreys was the first child born into this house, and this was actually her old nursery. I was up here one night grabbing a space heater. It was during a wedding, and I got called away before I could retrieve it. So when I returned and unlocked the door at the top of the stairs, I noticed that the door that had previously been open was now closed. So I went to open the door, and when I began to push the door open, I realized that there was something behind it. And in the process of me coming back up, something had pushed a trash can behind the door in such a way that you couldn't open it without moving the trash can. And that was actually the last time I came to the 3rd floor by myself at night.